This is the Mercedes Benz EQE sedan and it's Merc's electric E-Class. Question is though, has Mercedes Benz got the recipe for this one right? You're watching The Word on Cars. My name's Nish. Let's find out. Now, I recently reviewed the W213 E-Class, which is being replaced by the new W214 E-Class, and told you that it was all the luxury anyone needs. But technology is changing our lives, and with the dawn of electric cars, thanks to Elon, who proved that it could be done, it's no surprise that Mercedes-Benz has jumped on the bandwagon with this, the EQE sedan. Now, the EQE is the equivalent electric version of the E-Class, but it's a completely different platform and very obviously a completely different design. In terms of the lineup, this EQE300 is the base model of the EQE range. Then there's the EQE350, which gets dual motors, and 4MATIC, which is Mercedes speak for all-wheel drive, and the top spec EQE53 AMG for those that want the highest performing version. Also, and just to confuse us, the SUV version doesn't get a different model name. Unlike the GLE, which is the equivalent SUV of the E-Class sedan, the EQE SUV is called just that, the EQE SUV. Now, price-wise, I can't tell you what this will cost you at the moment because Mercedes-Benz isn't taking orders thanks to a battery shortage. But based on previous research, retail will set you back around 140,000 Australian dollars drive away. But you can find EQE300 dealer demonstrators for under 100 grand. And for peace of mind, Mercedes throws in a 5-year unlimited kilometer warranty and a 10-year 250,000 kilometer warranty on the high voltage battery. Now, let's address the elephant in the room, the styling of this car, which has the world divided. Mercedes says the design of the EQE is a result of wind tunnel testing for efficiency, but I'm not sure I buy that completely because this EQE has a drag coefficient, which is how aerodynamic and slippery the car is, of 0.22. While a little company in the United States of America known as Lucid managed to design and build this beautiful and elegant thing, which is also a luxury electric sedan, with a drag coefficient of 0.197. So instead, I think Mercedes has just pushed the envelope in terms of what futuristic looks like to give their electric cars a different identity, and they've certainly done that with the EQE. Now, I'm going to let the EQE do all the talking in terms of styling, but I will say that from certain angles, it does look good. And this may not be everyone's cup of tea, but that's okay, because beauty is in the eye of the beholder, or so they say. Up front, there's a rounded nose cone. Now, you can't call this a grille because it doesn't let anything through, being an electric car, which takes up most of the front end and is covered with little Mercedes-Benz emblems to make sure there's no second guessing what this is. Then we have the LED digital light headlights on either side of the nose cone with their own unique lighting signature. Now, digital light is truly the next level when it comes to lighting up the night, because each headlamp has over 1 million micro reflectors that can focus the light beam so you can light up what's in front of you without dazzling oncoming cars or pedestrians. It doesn't stop there though. With digital light, the EQE can also project notifications in high definition onto the road surface to warn you of changing road conditions or dangers, which is truly unbelievable. And to complete the front end, there's a sporty bumper bar with fake air intakes on either side for good measure, and that all-important AMG look. The EQE also gets more of a coupe-esque silhouette with quite a high belt line, door handles that sit flush against the body, and aluminium trimmings. The EQE also rides on AMG 20-inch wheels with these plastic inserts in between the spokes for better aerodynamics and efficiency. Personally, I think I'd prefer the wheels without these, but if you want them gone, you'll need to take the wheels off and undo the bolts that hold them in place. Mercedes also offers optional 21-inch AMG wheels, but you'll have to also option the Airmatic air suspension to get those, which will set you back over $5,000. And if you've ever wondered what this random panel is on the side of the EQE, it's to top up the windscreen washer fluid. Now, you might be thinking, why not just put that under the hood? But here's the kicker. You and I are not allowed to open the hood on the EQE unless we're qualified specialists. I'm serious. Although the hood does open, you can't actually access the latch without pulling off a trim piece under the dashboard, which is probably best left alone if you value the warranty. But I gotta say, I think this is by far the dumbest thing I've seen a manufacturer do, not to mention the fact that it looks ridiculous having this little door on the side of the car. Just boggles my mind. On the back end, it's the same story as the front. It's rounded. This also brings me to the only exterior difference between this and the EQE350, the ducktail spoiler, which is shorter on the EQE300 and taller on the EQE350. The rest is the same across both. Back here, there are tail lamp housings with 3D helixes that add to the futuristic look of the EQE, along with a light bar that runs the full length of the back end to light this thing up like a Christmas tree, and a sporty bumper bar complete with more fake air vents on either side that wraps into what I suppose is meant to look like a diffuser, with fins on either side. And if you've ever wondered where Mercedes hides the reverse camera, then there's the cabin. For a car that looks like a jelly bean on the outside, it definitely has a delicious interior. I mean, take a look around this thing. The only way to describe it is futuristic opulence. But it's still very much in keeping with the rest of the Mercedes Benz fleet in here in terms of design cues with the slanted upright tablet style infotainment screen and instrument cluster. Materials in here are also top notch as you would expect in a Mercedes Benz. Everything in here is wrapped in supple leather. This one has the Neva Grey on Biscay Blue interior, which is more white than grey to be honest, but you can opt for the black leather interior as well. And be warned that even the carpets in here are Neva Grey, so best of luck keeping those clean if you opt for this colour. There's also aluminium trimmings right throughout the cabin, what Mercedes calls anthracite line structure lime wood trim, which is a bit of a mouthful but looks and feels fantastic, and a gloss black center console in this futuristic cabin. On the wood trim, if that's not opulent enough, there's also the open pore ship's deck maple wood trim that can be optioned for around $1,100. And to top it all off, the EQE gets what Mercedes calls active ambient lighting, which puts on one hell of a light show in here and integrates into the driving modes, driver assistance systems. As an example, the dash lights up red to warn you of a collision, or the doors will light up red if there's someone in your blind spot. There are also color responses to climate control changes in here, or when you're using the Hey Mercedes voice assistant. I mean, this is what I expect the interior of an alien spaceship to look like. Now, let's rewind for a second to getting in. Like I said earlier, the door handles sit flush against the body, but they pop out when you approach the EQE with the key fob, so all you have to do is grab the handle to unlock and open the door. To lock up when you're done, touch the door handle and it'll lock itself up and hide away the handles. And on the key fob, it's as futuristic as the rest of the EQE, with the usual buttons that can also be used to open and close the windows and panoramic roof. Now, the EQE also gets frameless doors that open up quite far to make boarding nice and easy, and once you're in here, you'll also be impressed with the amount of space up front. Plenty of headroom, plenty of legroom, and my knees quite comfortably clear the steering wheel, which gets electric tilt and reach adjustment. The seats, which are obviously electric with a million different positions, look the part of a futuristic interior and are supremely comfortable and supportive. I can't stress that enough. And the driver's seat will even set itself up for the perfect driving position automatically. All you need to do is tell it how tall you are, which is quite impressive. And like I said, the cabin also gets an absolutely massive sliding panoramic roof that extends well and truly beyond the back seats, with a break in the middle which opens up this cabin even more, allowing plenty of light to come in. Then we have the 12.8-inch OLED display to access the MBUX system, which is one of the best in the industry. It's crystal clear, very responsive and intuitive. If this isn't enough real estate for you though, you can option what Mercedes calls the hyperscreen, with a ridiculous 56 inches of screen that sits under a single pane of glass for an even more futuristic interior. That'll set you back over $5,000 though, which is a waste of money to be honest, and aside from the passenger getting to watch movies, which mind you is disabled here in Australia, there's no real rational reason for 56 inches of screen, but that's just my opinion. Now, let's talk about the more rational infotainment screen in this EQE. Mercedes has what they call the zero layer, which is all of the fixed information on screen, like climate control, which stays put on the home screen. On climate control, it's fairly standard when it comes to how it operates, but you can tap this climate menu, which includes additional functions and access to pre-entry climate controls to make sure the cabin is either heated or cooled before you jump in. And being an EV, there's a dedicated menu for that with information on route, range, charging, consumption, and settings. Media and device connectivity, which includes Apple CarPlay and Android Auto obviously, also floats at the bottom of the screen, so it's always available and easy to switch between sources. Tapping the home button will bring up all of the system functions, apps, and settings, and swiping down brings up a notifications page, customizable favorites, and quick access settings. Now, given this is a luxury sedan, the MBUX system includes what Mercedes calls energizing comfort. Based on your mood, you can choose different programs like refresh, warmth, vitality, joy, and even a power nap mode, which adjusts the ambient lighting, displays, climate control, including seat heating and music. In the case of power nap mode, the system closes the electric sunshade for the panoramic roof and transforms the seats so you can kick back and take a quick break in here. And for those long trips, there's a training mode, which guides you through exercises to keep your muscles relaxed and improve your attentiveness. Now, usually I'd find features like this to be a little gimmicky, but this one does really transform the mood in here. You can also link up a fitness tracker or smartwatch to the system so you can work out the best program for you based on your vitals. It's kind of like having your own personal naturopath in here. And like I said earlier, you can access most of the functions by just saying, "Hey Mercedes," and using the voice assistant that's built into the EQE. Then we have the Burmester 15-speaker 710 watt audio system in here, which is phenomenal. One of the best systems I've heard in a while. I've listened to a bunch of music in here, classical, pop, hip hop, rap, house, rock, and the sound is precise, it's crisp, full of detail, and just so immersive with surround sound and 3D sound. And Mercedes makes setting up the sound in here super easy with the personal sound profile function, which is basically an easy to use equalizer, which will ask you a bunch of questions on what sounds good to your ears, which works brilliantly. I buy Merc just for this. It's that good. When it comes to safety and driver assistance tech, easiest way to say it is that the EQE gets everything. On top of the usual driver assistance tech, the likes of adaptive cruise control, which mind you even does lane changes for you, lane keeping, blind spot monitoring, forward and rear emergency braking with rear cross traffic alert, driver attention detection. The EQE also gets Pre-Safe Plus, which readies the EQE for a rear impact when you're stationary by tightening up the seatbelts, flashing the rear hazard lights, and tightening up the brakes. Then there's Pre-Safe Sound, which I talked about when I reviewed the E-Class, which is cutting-edge technology. The EQE will emit pink noise to shut out the noise of the accident, damaging your hearing. And the EQE is also equipped with Pre-Safe Side, which inflates the outer seat bolster to push you into the middle in the case of a side impact. To top it all off, the EQE gets a 3D 360-degree camera system with selectable views and automatic parking, or Parktronic with active park assist as Mercedes calls it, which will park your EQE for you. So safety-wise, this thing has you well and truly covered. Now, last thing to mention about this MBUX system is the row of buttons below the screen, which is actually just one long button. When you push any of the buttons on it, the whole bar is being pushed in, so not a huge fan of that, but it does work fine. Here you'll find the drive mode selector to choose between Eco, Comfort, Sport and individual modes, a button for the Parktronic system I just mentioned, the eView menu, or EQ as Mercedes calls it, a button to access vehicle settings, the hazard lights, a fingerprint scanner for different driver profiles, which is quite neat, but it's a shame you can't use it to start up the EQE and drive off without needing the key, a power button for the MBUX system, a mute button to kill the music, and a volume slider, which surprisingly works fine, but I would have preferred a volume knob instead. They'll get the memo eventually. And usually this is where I talk about the center console, but there isn't anything here aside from storage, so I'll cover that off a little bit later. In front of the driver, we have the same Mercedes Benz steering wheel you find in the rest of the fleet, with touch capacitive buttons to control the MBUX system and instrument cluster, and they work okay. They definitely add to the sleek and modern interior of this spaceship. The steering wheel also gets paddles behind it, but being an electric car, it's not to slam through gears. Instead, the paddles are used to change the regen settings, regen being how much electricity can be captured when the EQE is slowing down. For that, there are 3 settings: strong, normal, and no recuperation. And being a Mercedes, the gear selector is also stuck to the steering column. Up for reverse, a half press down for neutral, a full press down for drive, and park is a button you push at the end of the stalk. In a luxury car, this setup makes complete sense because you don't need to take your hands off the steering wheel, and it declutters the center console. Then there's the instrument cluster in here, which is a 12.3-inch OLED screen, so it's crystal clear like the infotainment screen. The instrument cluster includes all of the information one would need to see without being information overload. And what I really like about this cluster is that Mercedes has made it easy to choose the right view based on personal preference. Just hit the home button on the steering wheel and choose your view. There's understated, which is a less cluttered view with basic information. Next we have Sport, which as the name suggests, gives the display a futuristic and sporty look, complete with a G-force meter. Then there's Classic, which is the default view, and you can change what you see between the gauges by swiping up or down on the steering wheel controls, followed by Navigation, which puts a full screen map in front of the driver. And lastly, we have Assistance, which shows what all of the driver assistance systems are up to, and a service screen to keep on top of the maintenance. The EQE also gets a large heads-up display, and that works the same as the instrument cluster. Just swipe up on the home screen, and the instrument cluster will show you all the different views you can choose from. There's Minimal, which shows minimal information as the name suggests. Sport adds this weird oval that changes based on how you're driving. Not sure I understand what that's all about. Standard, which shows speed, traffic signs, driver assistance, and navigation all rolled into one. And Eco display, which helps you drive efficiently. There's also a settings menu in here to set up the heads-up display, position, brightness, that kind of thing. Now, coming back to storage in here, under this lid there are cup holders with a removable insert if you want to stick something else in here, along with a spot for the wireless phone charger, which mind you is a pain to get to with the cup holders in place, and 2 USB-C ports. There's also more space under the center console, given this is electric and doesn't have a transmission taking up the space, for handbags or the like, which includes a handy elastic strap to hold things in place, along with 2 more USB-C ports. There's more space under the split lid armrest, which is standard these days, along with a decent sized glove box on the dashboard. The space isn't built into the lid, so you'll need to duck down to see what you have in there. And lastly, the doors get sizable door bins that can easily accommodate bottles. So there's definitely enough storage in here. Then we have the back seats in the EQE. Now, boarding is made very easy in the back thanks to the doors that open up quite wide, so no issues from that perspective. And once you're in, space is pretty good considering the EQE is around 10mm shorter than an E-Class. The shape of the EQE doesn't do it any favors though. Headroom isn't great. Anyone over 6 feet should expect to brush the side of their head against the panoramic roof opening. Having said that though, leg and knee room is fantastic for my 5'9" self, with the seat set to my driving position, although there isn't a whole lot of toe room under the front seats. Still, there's plenty of room back here to stretch out. Now the EQE is also 46mm wider than the E-Class, so there's room for 3 adults back here and a floor that's almost completely flat. Space aside, the back seats are real luxe and comfortable. You get the same materials as the front. The kids are going to be wrapped. And again, good luck keeping this interior clean. Mercedes does throw in vents for the rear passengers, but this one doesn't have separate climate controls or heated outboard seats in the back as standard, which is surprising, but you do get a couple of USB-C ports hiding behind this lid, map pockets behind the front seats, bins in the doors that include bottle holders, and a slot for a tablet and cup holders that are hiding in the armrest to keep the kids entertained. Then we have the cargo area of the EQE. Now, at first glance, there isn't an obvious button to pop the boot on the EQE. That's because Mercedes has hidden it within the logo. Push the top in and voila! There is an electric tailgate, but surprisingly, no hands-free operation, which Mercedes includes in other models, the whole kick your foot under the bumper bar thing. Back here, the EQE offers up 430 litres of space, which isn't all that great when you consider a small sedan like the Kia Cerato GT, which I reviewed recently, has 502 litres of space. Let's call this the price of luxury, shall we? Anyway, you do get netted storage in here, as well as some underfloor storage for charge cords, a tyre repair kit, and smaller bits and pieces that you want to hide under here. And you can drop the 40-20-40 split rear seats by pressing the buttons on the boot lid. It won't bring them back up again though. To increase cargo space to 895 litres, or use the pass-through for longer items, which is handy for those Bunnings or Home Depot trips. So, driving the Mercedes Benz EQE300 sedan. Now I must admit, when I first got in here, I stuck it into sport mode and I thought, it's an electric car. Surely it's going to give me a good kick in the guts when I accelerate. But it didn't. Instead, it delivers torque and power quite linearly. Now the electric motor in this, it's a single motor rear wheel drive EQE. It's good for 180 kilowatts and 550 Newton meters. So the numbers aren't that bad. From a torque point of view, the numbers are quite decent. And you certainly feel that. So when you do accelerate, there's that initial surge of acceleration and then it just flattens out and it just keeps accelerating. But I think that's perfect for what this car is. It's a luxury car, it's not a performance car. Even 0 to 100 in this is around 7.3 seconds. The EQE350 with all-wheel drive and dual motors will do that in 6.3 seconds, so a little bit quicker. But this is really set up for luxury and comfort. And I think the way the electric motor in this car delivers power really does add to that overall experience in here. So from a driving point of view, it's a great place to be. It does certainly build speed when you need it to, but it does it in a way where it's not obtrusive, it's not uncomfortable. It's really just all about keeping you and the passengers in here comfortable. And it does that perfectly. In terms of range and efficiency, this thing has a 400 volt class 89 kilowatt hour battery pack, and that's claimed to be good for 508 kilometers. Now, depending on where in the world you live though, that's going to be different because the measurement used around the world is different based on weather patterns, because batteries operate best between 15 degrees Celsius and 35 degrees Celsius ambient temperature. So from my driving of this car, it seems to be pretty close to that 508 kilometer range, but as I said, it's going to be impacted in colder climates or in cold weather. Your battery performance will suffer, and in hot climates with hot weather, again, it's going to suffer. And also, depending on what accessories you're running in here, if you've got the stereo cranked up or climate control running, that's going to also have a bit of an impact on the battery performance and range. But the good thing is you can plug this thing into a fast charger and get it up to 80% in around 32 minutes. But if you do plug it into a normal household outlet, it's going to take you over 42 hours to charge this thing up. So if you are getting an EQE, best get yourself a fast charger. In terms of suspension, this thing is sublime. I mean, it is so comfortable in here. The suspension, even on roads like I'm on at the moment that have potholes and undulations and cracks, this thing just glides over those. I mean, you barely feel a bump in here. Now, you can also option the airmatic suspension that Mercedes Benz offers, but I really don't think it needs it because the way this thing is set up is perfect. It just gets down the road. It's superbly comfortable. You really can't ask for more. Now, handling wise, it's not a performance car. Yes, it gets around corners fine. You certainly feel the weight when you're going around a corner. It doesn't lean as much as I expected it to, but it does a little. Again, it's heavy. No surprises there. And surprisingly, it does break traction quite easily at the back. I mean, with 550 Newton meters of torque, it probably shouldn't be too much of a surprise. So you can get this thing going sideways quite easily, especially in weather like this. Don't ask me how I know that. But traction control kicks in, will pull you back into place. So overall, it handles fine, but the suspension though is fantastic. Then there's the steering. Now, it's a luxury car like I've been saying, and it works from that perspective. It changes direction when you want it to. It's untheatrical, really. It does feel quite disconnected. It is an electric steering rack, so it probably is a little disconnected from the front wheels. And, sorry, accelerating. Tell you what, this thing makes some interesting noises. Now, on the noises actually, this thing has artificial noise that gets pumped into the cabin and outside of the cabin as well. And you gotta have a couple of different options to choose from. It really does sound like a spaceship. Anyway, back to the steering. So steering is fine. It does feel a bit numb because it doesn't really communicate what the front wheels are doing, but it doesn't matter. You don't need to know what the front wheels are doing in this car. You just want it to go around a corner when you tell it to, and it does that fine. And the steering itself is quite comfortable. It's light. I find regardless of the drive mode you're in, the steering sort of stays about the same when it comes to its firmness. It works. There's really not much more I can say about it. The brakes in this EQE are fantastic. I mean, it weighs 2,400 kilograms like I mentioned, but it brings this thing to a grinding halt so quickly. I mean, 80 kilometers an hour and then down to a full stop, and it happens that quick. So brakes work really well. I can't tell you exactly what brakes this has because the wheels are completely covered, so you can't really see behind those. From a regen point of view, the recuperation in this thing is set to normal, and I find that to be the most comfortable recuperation. In strong, you definitely feel the brakes tightening up, and you will definitely feel this thing slowing down. Yes, you get more energy back, but I find that normal is probably the place to be. You get a little bit of energy back through that process, but overall, it keeps you comfortable. That's what's important in here, right? And lastly, we have to talk about the cabin. Now, you've seen how opulent and futuristic the interior is from a design perspective. You've seen all the features and technology that I've taken you through. But this cabin is also so insulating. I happened to be sitting in the car the other day, and I cracked open one of the windows and I had no idea that there was a lot going on outside the car, because it just quietens everything down. You really don't hear anything in here, very little tire noise. You do have the sound experience playing in the background, coming through the speakers on the inside, and I do quite like that. It adds a little bit of theatre to what would otherwise be pretty silent. I mean, you can hear the electric motor, but I do like the sounds that this thing makes. Visibility isn't the greatest though, because the rear window is a little narrow, which is expected given the shape of this car, but everything else is perfectly fine. You can see well. I mean, the 360-degree camera system in this thing is phenomenal. That works really well and pops up in low speed as well to help you maneuver this ginormous EQE around. So all in all, I mean, this thing is such a nice place to be. I could sit in here for days, long road trips, no issues, and you and your family would just be going down the road in comfort in the EQE300. It's fantastic. So, why does this car exist? I mean, aside from the fact that Mercedes is jumping on the EV bandwagon, I think what they're trying to do with the EQE sedan is appeal to a younger demographic, because let's be real here for a second. The E-Class has always been seen as an older gentleman's or ladies' executive sedan of choice, and that's probably because they were the only ones that could afford the E-Class. And even though that may not be the case anymore, the bias has stuck. This, on the other hand, doesn't just appeal to the older audience that are now environmentally conscious, it also appeals to the younger tech-savvy generation. Having said that, with its polarizing looks on the outside, this thing isn't going to appeal to everyone. But if you do find yourself intrigued by the design of the EQE and focus on its personality, I think you might find yourself a little in love with this German electric sedan. That's a wrap on the EQE. If you enjoyed the video, please hit that like button and share the video with your family and friends. And if you're not subscribed to the channel already, please consider subscribing. It's a big help and goes a long way. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.